The Super Bowl is not only the biggest day of the year in football, but across all of sports too. The entire country revolves its day around the big game, where one team is ultimately crowned world champions. Since its inception in 1967, it has captivated hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide. Here's one unique fact about each Super Bowl. Taking it back to where it all began, Super Bowl I is the only instance where the game wasn't sold out. Only 62,000 of the 94,000 available seats were taken. Super Bowl II, and the one that follows it, is the only instance in NFL history where the same stadium hosted the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. Super Bowl III is the first time that this game was called the Super Bowl. Before that, it was just referred to as the AFL-NFL World Championship game. In Super Bowl IV, Chiefs' Hank Stram became the first head coach to wear a microphone during an NFL game. Despite losing to the Dolphins 16-13 in Super Bowl V, Chuck Howley of the Dallas Cowboys won Super Bowl MVP. He remains the only player to ever win it on a losing team. Super Bowl VI was the first ever Super Bowl where the winning team scored in every single quarter. It also marked the first professional sports title won by a Dallas-based team. While the 1972 Dolphins are famously known for being the only undefeated Super Bowl champion after taking home the Lombardi in Super Bowl VII, they are also the only team to win the game despite being shut out in the second half. Taking place at Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas, Super Bowl VIII was the first Super Bowl that was played at a non-NFL venue. Super Bowl IX had the first instance of a safety recorded in the big game. Super Bowl X was the first time in which the play clock was visible to both teams and spectators. Super Bowl XI marked the first time that the game was being played at the Rose Bowl. The Super Bowl has been held there a total of 5 times. The 12th iteration of the big game marked the first time that it was being played indoors. Taking place at the Superdome, Randy White and Harvey Martin both won Super Bowl MVP, the only time that's happened in league history. Super Bowl XIII's contest between the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers marked the first ever Super Bowl rematch by 2 teams. Super Bowl XIV, which featured the Rams and Steelers, set the record for the most lead changes in any Super Bowl with 7. In Super Bowl XV, the Oakland Raiders became the first ever wildcard team to win the big game. Super Bowl XVI was the first time that the game was being played in a cold weather state. Also, there was concern of 49ers quarterback Joe Montana not being able to arrive to the game on time. This was because he was caught in a traffic jam caused by George Bush's motorcade. Due to a strike earlier in the year, Super Bowl XVII was the only time where 2 teams faced off in the big game, with both only having single-digit wins. Super Bowl XVIII is famously known for its commercial with the Apple Macintosh. Washington also became the first Super Bowl favorite to fail to score a touchdown. In Super Bowl XIX, Ronald Reagan became the first U.S. president to participate in a coin toss. In Super Bowl XX, the Monsters of the Midway set a Super Bowl record with most sacks in a game with 7. They also allowed the fewest rushing yards, with just allowing 7 yards on 11 attempts. Super Bowl XXI was the first time we saw the victorious head coach getting showered in Gatorade. It is also the first instance of a player screaming, "I'm going to Disney World," following the big win. In Super Bowl XXII, Timmy Smith rushed for 2 touchdowns and 204 yards. This was the most rushing yards of any running back in any Super Bowl ever. Furthermore, Washington's quarterback Doug Williams set the record for most touchdowns thrown in a quarter with 4. The very next year in Super Bowl XXIII, we saw another yardage record being broken, this time by receiver Jerry Rice. His 215 receiving yards have yet to be touched this day. The 49ers' 55-10 win over the Broncos in Super Bowl XXIV are both the most points scored by a single team in the big game and also the largest margin of victory. The Giants' 20-19 victory over the Bills in Super Bowl XXV is the closest margin of victory in Super Bowl history. Super Bowl XXVI was held in the Metrodome. They also hosted the 1992 Final Four that year. This became the only stadium to host the 2 events in the same calendar year. Super Bowl XXVII featured Michael Jackson's famous halftime performance. Following the game, Dallas Cowboys' Michael Irvin admitted that he and other teammates snuck out of the locker room at halftime to watch the spectacle unfold. In Super Bowl XXVIII, the Buffalo Bills became the first and still only team in NFL history to make 4 straight Super Bowls. Unfortunately for them, they also lost all 4 of these contests. In Super Bowl XXIX, the 75 points combined by the Niners and Chargers are still the most in any Super Bowl. 49ers quarterback Steve Young also threw for 6 touchdowns, which is still a record in the big game to this day. In Super Bowl XXX, the Cowboys became the first team to win 3 Super Bowls in a 4-year span. The matchup in Super Bowl XXXI between the Packers and Patriots was the first time the big game was aired by Fox. Super Bowl XXXII was hosted by Qualcomm Stadium. This is the only stadium to ever host both a Super Bowl and a World Series in the same year. Following the Denver Broncos' 34-19 win over the Falcons in Super Bowl XXXIII, Fox aired the first ever episode of Family Guy. In Super Bowl XXXIV, Kurt Warner became the first and only undrafted player to win Super Bowl MVP. The Rams' 29 rushing yards are also the least amount of rushing yards by a Super Bowl winner. In Super Bowl XXXV, Ron Dixon's 97-yard kickoff return marked the only point scored for the Giants this game. On the following kickoff, the Ravens returned the favor. To this day, this remains the only instance of back-to-back kickoff return touchdowns in a Super Bowl. Adam Vinatieri's 48-yard field goal as time expired in Super Bowl XXXVI marked the first game-winning field goal in Super Bowl history. The Buccaneers' 48-21 win over the Raiders in Super Bowl 37 was the last instance of a Super Bowl being played in the month of January. Jake Delhomme's 85-yard pass to Muhsin Muhammad in Super Bowl 38 is the longest passing reception in the game's history. It is also the longest passing touchdown recorded in a Super Bowl. Despite breaking his leg and tearing an ankle ligament just weeks prior to Super Bowl 39, Terrell Owens recorded 9 receptions for 122 yards. Antoine Randall's 43-yard touchdown pass to Hines Ward in Super Bowl 40 is the first time a wide receiver threw a touchdown pass in a Super Bowl. Pittsburgh's Ben Roethlisberger also became the youngest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl at just 23 years old. Devin Hester's 92-yard kickoff return in Super Bowl 41 is the first opening kickoff score in the game's history. The Colts' 29-17 victory over the Bears also marked the first Super Bowl win by an AFC South team. In Super Bowl 42, the New England Patriots became the first and only team to ever enter the big game undefeated and walk away empty-handed. In Super Bowl 43, James Harrison recorded the longest defensive score in the game's history. His 100-yard pick six at the end of the first half helped Pittsburgh capture their 6th Lombardi. Super Bowl 44's contest between the Indianapolis Colts and New Orleans Saints marked the first time that the big game surpassed 100 million viewers. By the time kickoff occurred for Super Bowl 45, AT&T Stadium hadn't finished installing all of its seats. This left over 1,000 fans without a place to sit, causing fans being refunded up to over 300%. Super Bowl 46 marked the first instance where two previous Super Bowl MVP quarterbacks faced off against one another. Jacoby Jones's 108-yard kick return in Super Bowl 47 is both the longest play and score in Super Bowl history. To this day, Super Bowl 48 is the only game to feature a team that scored an offensive, defensive, special team touchdown as well as a safety. This safety is also the quickest score in Super Bowl history, happening just 12 seconds into the game. Tom Brady was awarded his 3rd Super Bowl MVP for his efforts in Super Bowl 49. It had been 11 years since the last time he won this award, making it the longest gap between a player earning MVP honors. In Super Bowl 50, quarterbacks Peyton Manning and Cam Newton set the record for largest age difference between opposing Super Bowl quarterbacks. Peyton Manning was 39, while Newton was 26. The New England Patriots' 28-3 comeback in Super Bowl 51 is the largest in Super Bowl history. Not only that, but running back James White set the record for the most receptions in a Super Bowl with 14. Super Bowl 52 set numerous records when it comes to yards. This game had the most combined yards by two teams with 1,151, the most yards thrown by a quarterback with 505, as well as the most yards by a Super Bowl loser with 613. The New England Patriots' 13-3 win over the LA Rams made this the lowest scoring contest in the game's history. Both squads only scored a combined 16 points. In Super Bowl 54, Patrick Mahomes became the youngest quarterback to be awarded Super Bowl MVP. He achieved this at just 24 years old. In Super Bowl 55, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers became the first team to play a Super Bowl in their own stadium. Tom Brady also became the oldest quarterback to win Super Bowl MVP at 43 years old. In Super Bowl 56, Cincinnati's Zach Taylor and LA's Sean McVay were a combined 74 years and 299 days old by the time kickoff occurred. This makes this the youngest matchup between two coaches in Super Bowl history. Kadarius Toney's 65-yard punt return in Super Bowl 57 is the longest one recorded in the game's history. In Super Bowl 58, San Francisco's Jake Moody set the record for longest field goal in a Super Bowl at 55 yards. Just a few minutes later, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs snatched the record by drilling a 57-yarder of his own. Regardless of the outcome of Super Bowl 59, history will be made either way. If the Kansas City Chiefs win, it'll mark the first time that an NFL team has won 3 straight Super Bowls. And on the other side, if the Philadelphia Eagles win, Nick Sirianni will become the first head coach to win a Super Bowl rematch against the team he lost to. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys want to see in the future.